We're out and about in Cape Town at the UCT School of Business, really speaking about the 20th celebration of the South African Qualifications Authority as well as the National Qualifications Framework. What does it mean for young people, but also how do we reach a global context? To continue our conversation this morning, we are joined now by the Chairperson of the SAQA board, who is Dr. Vuyelwa Toni Penxa, and she'll be taking us through some of the proceedings as well as the outcomes that we can expect this week. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now, you know, we were having a conversation with Dr. Julie Reddy regarding issues around prior learning and also in terms of being able to qualify those that were not able to reach qualifications under the apartheid regime. So let's bring it home for a second and allow me to do so. Let's say that I'm a 40 or 50-year-old man. Because of the previous dispensation, I was not necessarily allowed to even have that qualification, maybe as a welder or even as a boiler maker. But I found myself working rather on the job and receiving that on-the-job training. Am I able to get the qualifications? I've been in the business for 20 years. I know it because of experience. I don't have the piece of paper. How do you match it and make sure that the piece of paper matches my experience and my qualifications on the job?
Okay. Good morning and morning to the viewers. SAQA has developed a policy on recognition of prior learning.
Yeah.
Now, as you've correctly stated, that in the past, people did some work for several years, and you find that they didn't get any recognition for that work.
Yeah.
So that is exactly the purpose of the development of this policy. So what is going to happen now, and already happening, as Julie has already alluded to, that experience that you have acquired and accumulated throughout the years is assessed against certain criteria, and you are required to compile a certain profile as prescribed by your RPL policy. It doesn't just happen.
Policy was the RPL policy.
RPL policy, recognition of prior learning policy.
There we go. Yes.
Yes, as informed by the SAQA policy. So each institution should have its own recognition of prior learning policy, which they are going to use to assess and evaluate that experience and look at your portfolio of evidence that you have acquired that experience and then be able to recognize your learning accordingly.
Well, we'll speak in depth about how then to achieve this and how then the individual is assessed, but also most importantly, how do they get that the qualifications there. But we're also taking your Facebook comments this morning, and we're going to go straight to Penny right now, who's standing by with some of those Facebook comments. Over to you, Penny.
Thanks for staying with us right here on Sunrise as we continue, of course, this morning. As Faith correctly says, we've got some of your comments on our Facebook page this morning. And, of course, we asked you this morning, how can the South African Qualifications Authority combat the production of fraudulent qualifications? And hashtag is ATV Sunrise. Vito Mkia saying these days it's hard to hold on original stuff, no matter how deep secret the organization may invent to reduce fake stuff. But the same officials are the ones who sell software to outsiders to make extra cash. I don't see any way to stop it. Langa Class say they must have a barcode in your ID that corresponds with the one on your document, and everywhere you go there must be some kind of a verification machine that will scan your fingerprints as proof. Prosper saying there must be a lot of security features and the material must be one of the best quality and rare to be found. A secret barcode for SAQA on every certificate, diploma or degree. And Alfred Nongauza saying by not being situated in Johannesburg only, I once heard some guy, maybe he's a CEO, say that they were in Gauteng and they are going to Durban after Durban is PE. That's not the strategy to combat these fake colleges. That's what he's saying there. And of course, as they continue to comment this morning as well, another one saying, I believe it's best you report the first, as there's too much fraudsters out there and you don't want your ID or your certificates landing in the wrong hands, as well as not waiting until something happened before taking action. Those are your comments coming through this morning, commenting on, of course, combating fraudulent certification in South Africa. Back, of course, to Faith down in Cape Town to continue the conversation this morning.
Well, thank you very much there, Penny, for some of those comments on Facebook. I mean, really, they're looking at the genuineness and being able to verify some of those qualifications. How do you ensure that fraud and prevent issues such as fraud from happening, where you fake the qualification, you go into a workplace, you get the job, and you didn't even qualify for it at all? So how do you ensure that?
Now, unfortunately, SAQA cannot stop that from happening. It will happen from time to time. However, it is our responsibility to ensure that we verify those qualifications. What happens, for example, is that there will be learners who come from outside to seek employment in South Africa. There will be learners who come from outside who want to register with our universities in South Africa. There are learners within South Africa that will do the same. Yeah. So it is the responsibility of the institution as well as the employer to verify those qualifications before they even employ the person. Now, the institutions also, what they do is to send the learners to SAQA for the verification of their qualifications. SAQA does not only verify the qualifications, SAQA also look at equivalence of qualifications, particularly those that are coming from outside, and peg those qualifications at a certain level as informed by the information that comes from with the documents from outside. Now, to facilitate and expedite that, SAQA has ensured that there is the establishment now of this African Qualifications Verification Network. It is going to make our work easier and faster, because now with all the stakeholders from Africa in general that participated at the launch of this network, they are tasked with the same responsibility of verifying qualifications in their own countries. So once there is this network, there's going to be fast communication, coordination, and working together to ensure that the process is fast, the process is credible, as well as there's ease and
in a situation, and perhaps maybe you should just expound in terms of, you talking about the verification of the qualifications within their respective countries. Would there ever be or arise a situation where one qualification or verification or qualification in one particular country does not necessarily match that of another country? So let's say that the one who qualifies in Ethiopia does not necessarily meet the qualification standards of South Africa, and therefore there is that disconnect when that individual has to transfer for work opportunities or economic opportunities whatsoever.
Now, if it happens, for instance, SAQA will give a report to say these qualifications at the country of origin, they are at this level, which is equivalent to this level in South Africa. Okay. So it is up to the employer to determine if the person meets the criteria or not.
Sure. And of course, I mean, look at the fact that certain milestones have had to be reached during, 22 years of democracy in South Africa, but one will say that SAQA celebrating 20 years, there's a lot of growing up that it's needed to do. So talk to us about really the link and really the significance of this 20-year period.
Now, SAQA has achieved and is proud of this achievement of reaching a 20-year milestone. Now, besides the establishment of the national qualifications, NQF, that is the National Qualifications Framework, so SAQA is ensuring that we continue to develop and implement that National Qualifications Framework. So, as Julie had already mentioned, that included is the National Learner Records Database. So that also helps, particularly in local qualifications. All our qualifications locally are in that National Learner Records Database. So it's easy, for example, to call the qualifications and make them available within a short period of time.
And who have been those identified sort of African partnerships that you have, especially when it comes to some of the countries within our continent?
Can you repeat that?
Some of the partners that you've had within the African continent and some of the countries that have come on board, who are those countries?
Wow. For example, we had Zambia, we had Sudan, we had Namibia, we had Lesotho, Botswana, quite a number of African countries. And
they're all in partnership to make sure that indeed with the verification network.
Yesterday.
And the meeting was held.
Yes, they signed that declaration and the meeting was a success.
Sure, well, we look forward.
There's a committee that has been established that is going to take the process forward.
Well, we're going to actually be speaking about the committee just a little later on in the show as well and finding out the significance thereof. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us this morning. There just is Dr. Vuyelwa Toni Penxa. She's the chairperson of the SAQA board. We're continuing with this with our broadcast this morning at the UCT School of Business as I really look at the 20th celebration of the South African Qualifications Authority.